Nebraska shocked the nation earlier this week when it became the first red state since the 1970s, in fact, to ban the death penalty. And we've got all the information for you. Lawmakers in the unicameral legislature voted 30-19 to override a veto issued by Governor Pete Ricketts over their initial legislation ending the practice. Now, originally, through the course of this year, they've approved the repeal 3 times. And in this case, they were able to overcome his veto despite 2 votes swinging at the last minute. Nebraska, with that move, now joins 18 other states and Washington, D.C. in banning executions. So this is, of course, very significant. Now, they have not actually conducted an execution since 1997. They currently have 10 inmates on death row, so this is a very significant move for them, although they'll probably never get out of prison for the rest of their life anyway. But very significant. We've got some explanations on why it was that this technically nonpartisan legislature went against the Republican governor when the vast majority of them are conservative and would identify as Republicans. We'll get to that soon, but this is pretty significant. Like I said, since the 1970s, you haven't had a red state or traditionally red state make this move. And in a country where support for the death penalty has inched down over the past decade, this is perhaps a good sign.
Look, I think it's a great sign on a couple of fronts. Number one, death penalty is losing its power. That's great. I mean, that's 18 states is nothing to sneeze at. We're gaining ground here, right? And the first red state, as John pointed out here, in a long time. That's wonderful news because we're killing the wrong people. Okay, so that's, you guys know, if you watch the show a long time, I switched on death penalty. I used to be in favor of it. I'm against it because we keep releasing people from death row and saying, oops, sorry, DNA evidence has proved that we had the wrong guy. I can't have that. I mean, that's crazy. It's one thing to want to kill the right guy. It's another thing to say, well, we kill a bunch of wrong guys, but anyway, let's go on with our lives. I can't stomach that.
And for me also, because I didn't have to switch. As long as we have our legal system, which is, clearly better than most, right? Because we look at some other countries that don't have it figured out as well. But as long as the poorer you are, even if you did do it, the more likely you are to get executed. The arbitrariness of the quality of your defense, the zealousness of the prosecutor, the political motivations of the prosecutor, it ended up people in the same state with a guy who clearly committed a more heinous crime, but he had a better lawyer and a different like that all seems like, how does this country arbitrarily, oh, you live, but you're going to die. And that never even...
Are you saying like a famous athlete who's really rich, cut 2 people's heads off, might be able to get away with it in some cases, and then the other guy gets put to death?
That sounds far-fetched.
Okay.
So people, again, so that's one reason to be against the death penalty. I think the bigger and the reason that precedes that reason is that it's the wrong thing to be doing because what it sends is the message that the death penalty says is that, yes, violence works sometimes, except when politicians are implementing it, they're actually saying that it does the opposite. So Bill Clinton, and this is when I changed my mind on I didn't change, or I developed an opinion about it, was after Timothy McVeigh blew up the federal building in Oklahoma. Bill Clinton gave a famous speech, and he said that I'm asking for the death penalty for this because we have to send the message that violence isn't the answer to any of our problems. So right then I was like, boom, light bulb went off in my head. I'm like, oh, so violence isn't the answer to our problems, then we shouldn't kill this guy. No, but it is in this situation. Yeah. So that's why you don't do it. Also, it's been proven that it's not a deterrent. You're only supposed to do that if it deters. Right? That's why you have the punitive part of the law, if it deters. Well, if it doesn't deter, now you're just doing it for vengeance. And again, if you...
The only argument that ever worked was eye for an eye. That was the only one that stand up, because like vengeance. Like, no, you killed, so we're killing back. That's the argument that death penalty opponents couldn't get past.
Right.
You're like, yeah, that's true. That's what you're doing.
Yeah, and I don't mind. That's part of why I was for the death penalty, because I believe in vengeance. Okay, because I'm a bad guy. But if you say to me an eye for an eye, and it turns out I got the wrong eye, and you did it, and I gouged Ben's eye. Whoa, wait a minute! I'm not in favor of that. That was stupid. Yeah, that was horrible.
Yeah, but don't you understand? But you don't agree, or you don't agree that the society, needs to send a message about how that violence doesn't work and that we're above it. That's why we don't torture people, because we're, it's because it's not about how bad the guy is. It's about what kind of society we want to be.
I don't know how I think Jimmy makes a great point. I don't know how you could, on principle, be against torture but be in favor of the death penalty. I mean,
Yeah, well, I think there's a good reason. Let's see if that's true. Okay, I feel like if you killed someone I love, I want to kill you. Okay, and I want the state to end your life. Okay, because I believe in vengeance. Okay, again, I don't want to do that if I've got the wrong guy. Okay, now, in torture doesn't really work. It gives you it's counterproductive. It gives you the wrong information. Oftentimes, sometimes it might give you the right information. Anything can give you accidentally the right information, right? So, okay, you've got someone that I love in a basement somewhere. You say, okay, are you going to torture them? That's the most common example, right? You're going to torture him, right? I go, no, because he's going to say something, right? Once you torture him. But it could, wild goose chase, right? It's not reliable. I want to find the person. He's got my mom in a basement. I want to. So now, for example, look, let me just finish the thought. With the Nazis, we got the information and we broke their codes because we brought them to Alabama and we played ping pong with them and we bought them steak dinners. Now, did we want to treat the Nazis like that? No, we didn't. But we broke their code because they became friends. So if you say to me, you got this heinous son of a bitch that took your mom and got him in a basement, am I allowed to eat steak dinner with him or should I torture him? I said, for God's sake, eat the steak dinner with him. We'll worry about the torture later. Okay, so if you want to talk to me about torture as punishment, that's a whole nother level of problems. But ultimately, don't get me wrong, I'm persuaded by the second argument, which is if violence isn't the answer, why are we killing him? Like, so in my heart, since I'm a bad guy, I want the vengeance, right?
Right.
Okay, look, putting the false thing, modesty or whatever it is aside, it's not that I'm a bad guy, I'm a homo sapien, I'm a human being. I have vengeance in my heart.
Well, we have to talk about our values as a society. And
we're better than that.
And what our culture means. Do we want a violent culture, a vengeful culture, or do we want a enlightened culture? I would want an enlightened culture.
I want an enlightened culture where people who commit heinous crimes like that go to prison and stay there. That's the enlightened part. They don't have to get out. I got no problem with it.
I'm with you. Yeah.
One final thing, you mentioned the class differences, obviously. I think we have to at least mention that there is a perfectly documented, there are racial disparities in meting out the death penalty.
Yeah,
if you kill a white person, you're going to get the death penalty at higher rates than if you kill a black person or another minority.
No way.
We just need to.
No way.
Yeah.
So Nebraska banned torture. That's great. That's good news. Yeah.
Okay, so there is one more thing. Why do we think the Republicans voted to end the death penalty?
Yeah, so again,
that's the most
in Nebraska, they are technically not Republicans. They're nonpartisan, although many of them are conservative and would call themselves Republicans. But we do have a quote. Opponents of the death penalty here were able to build a coalition that spanned the ideological spectrum by winning the support of Republican legislators who said they believed capital punishment was inefficient, expensive, and out of place with their party's values, as well as that of lawmakers who cited religious or moral reasons for supporting the repeal.
So they did the good stuff. They got the moral, they got religious, and they also were like, hey, look, it costs more money, which has always been true, because we can't, and whether your old argument of whether deterrence would work if it happened quickly. Like, would you commit that crime if you thought, wow, they're going to arrest me? And the way the guy who tried to kill FDR in 1932, after he was elected, before he served, I actually think it was early 33 when you weren't sworn in until March, took a shot at the president in Miami and killed the mayor of Cleveland, I think, Anton Cermak. I think I have that right. Instead, right? And that guy was, I'm not exaggerating much here, whatever, was arrested, tried, convicted, and executed, I think in like 19 days. Like the whole thing, And that was 1933. This wasn't 1833.
See, deterrence works. After that, they never tried to kill another president.
Nobody ever tried to kill another president again.
Most potential criminals don't think they're going to get caught. That's the thing.
Right, and mostly, it's mostly a psychotic mind committing or an unintentional murder, but you're using a gun and you're committing another felony, and that still qualifies as the death penalty.
Can I make one final point? Just because I have to devil's advocate. I generally, as much as I think it's one of the reasons people should turn against the death penalty, I don't really like it takes too long and it's too costly argument as an argument against the death penalty, because the people who support the death penalty will just say the only reason it takes so long, it costs so much, is because you damn liberals draw it out as long as you.
That's what I used to say all the time.
Exactly. If they could have their way, they do it instantly.
Right,
so it's
but
not
of course,
really a counter argument.
but the argument is, so what are you going to do? Prevent them from appealing? Like we can't.
Yes, that's what they would do.
I know, but that argument will lose. Like that, because we keep getting it wrong. We're not gonna get a giant consensus in this country of no appeals. Like that's not gonna happen. So the good news is it's a movement in that direction, and that would be a great thing if we stopped executing people. The United States, last thing, I'm sorry, I gotta say, because every time, The United States is supposed to kick down the door and save you. We don't execute you. We're not the people in the room.
Oh.
Yeah.
That's what we do. We come to people's rescue.
That's the idea,
the
but that's
idea.
not what we do.
No. So I hate the idea that the person kicking down the door and coming to rescue is, no, they're the guys with the needle.
Okay. I have, believe it or not, 2 more final.
Oh, good.
points.
All right, good.
Okay. So the country going towards legalizing marijuana throughout the different states, country going to legalize gay marriage throughout the states, now the country going towards getting rid of the death penalty throughout the states.
Center right.
Remember how this is a conservative country
Yeah.
again?
Oh, you
Okay.
should have been in that story yesterday.
Yeah,
We
about
had the list of the values.
Oh,
Every
yeah.
single one moves.
Everyone
they're
in
all
the right
going
direction.
progressive.
Yeah.
Except,
And the young are even more progressive.
Except for fur.
except
By
for
the way,
animals
part of the
with fur.
reason,
Except for fur. People are more okay with fur.
Yeah.
Okay.
Fuck animals. Apparently.
I'm kind of, yeah, anyway. And one thing that people are discounting is, okay, the traditional media is I know the traditional media thinks it's liberal, but we know it's deeply conservative, right?
Yes.
And they're losing their foothold of power with people under 35. No one under 35 is watching traditional media. The people under 35 are massively progressive, historically progressive, right? People think that's disconnected. They've never made the connection. If you tell them the connection, they would, ha, 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 the internet and digital media are making a difference. Okay, don't do anything. Stay right there, okay? And just wait. Wait till the country's 70% progressive, and just keep laughing, right? So, and final point is, look at this. There is democracy at the state level. Okay, this doesn't happen at the national level. No way. Conservatives don't change their mind and vote the other way. Somebody comes in with buckets full of money, et cetera. They're entrenched in their positions, yada yada. At the state level, they actually listen. They actually listen. Look, Larry Lessig, brilliant Harvard law professor, goes to a Delaware committee meeting, takes a red eye from the West Coast to go to Delaware to testify to get money out of politics. It's a resolution. It's one we favor at Wolfpack, right? We go in, there's 5 people in the committee, the speaker's against us, and we don't have a single vote. But Lessig, who is an American hero, comes in on the red eye anyway, right? He's exhausted. He's got to go see his family. He lives up in Boston, etc. Comes in and tries to persuade them. You know what happened? He persuaded them. 3 people switched their votes. We won 3-2. Okay, Democrats and Republicans. And a Democrat opposed the Democratic speaker. Okay, which is really ballsy. Okay, and we won because at the state level they actually listen. And Lessig wrote a blog about it afterwards. He's like, I can't believe it. I just saw democracy. This is what democracy is supposed to be. You make an argument, you have a debate, and then people actually listen, and then they vote based on the ideas.
Yeah.
And that's what happened here in Nebraska with the death penalty. Democracy actually exists. It's wonderful. It's at the state level. Let's go get it, right? Let's go participate in it. And that's how we can bring democracy back to the national level.